CQ.
Hello and welcome back to CQ, the AWS Certification quiz show, where I'm here with our latest guest, May. May, welcome to CQ.
Thank you.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do here at AWS?
Yeah, thanks for having me. My name is May. I'm a solution architect here at AWS, and I'm from Sydney, Australia, streaming from Sydney, Australia. So as my main role as a solution architect, I look after a New South Wales customer in Sydney. And I mainly work with customer on the technical side of it, working either on the architecture or running the workshop or doing the training and certification for them.
I love it. I have heard you're a bit into training them yourself, so you should be perfectly prepped for today's show. Have you seen any of the show before today?
I have seen a couple of the shows. Yeah, it's really cool. It's like, some tips and, useful tips for the exam. So,
Which I believe you have just started the journey for yourself. Is that correct?
That is true. So when I started AWS, I didn't have a certification. So I am on my way to get my first certifications. I am so pumped.
And you're going for SA Associate, which we're looking at today. So this should be more good prep for you and hopefully give you a jog because it's next week. Is that right?
That's true. Please do not remind me.
So it's perfectly normal to have a few nerves before a cert, but hopefully we can help you out a bit today.
Yep, I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. And to be fair, that means we'll have to get you back on after the exam to see if you can bring any new tips to us.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Set up perfectly. So why don't you tell us where we are today before we jump into questions?
Yeah, definitely. So this is where I came from. So I'm from Burma, Myanmar. Myanmar is called Myanmar now. I grew up there. I lived there for about 18 years before I moved to Australia. So I moved when I was 18, but that's where I grew up.
It's beautiful. I love this image that we have today. Mate, thank you so much for being here. Are you ready to get stuck into our first question?
Exactly, yeah.
All right, let's do it.
Cool.
As a quick reminder for all of our viewers, please feel free to vote along as we go by putting the corresponding number into our chat. And feel free to pop any questions in for me as well.
Cool.
Let's do
get
it.
Started.
Looks like a good one to start, a bit of Athena. All right, mate, here we go. A dashboard application is running Amazon Athena queries every 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. The data is stored in a large compressed Parquet file. How can the cost of these queries be reduced?
Cool. That's my favorite questions. So,
oh really?
The cost
okay,
of
good.
The queries.
Good start.
Cool. Amazon Athena queries every 5 minutes, and the data is stored in the large compressed file. Cool. So, if we look at the first answer, convert the Parquet file to CSV formats. We don't usually do that because Parquet file is much better for the cost.
We want to do it the other way around.
The other way around, exactly. And the second answer, decompress the data file. No, we don't want to decompress the data file. Athena might skip those kind of files when it does the queries.
Speaking of, do you want to quickly give everyone an overview of Athena?
Yeah. So Amazon Athena is the query service which use the standard SQL to search the data on the S3, which is our simple storage service.
So we'd want to compress the file.
Yes, exactly. So, and then number 3, split the data into a multiple partition file. That makes more sense. That seems like the answer, but I'll keep going. Activate section caching. Athena doesn't do the caching in this sense, so I will stick with number 3.
So you're going with number 3. We have a few votes for number 3 from our poll as well. Ooh. So shall we see how you're going off question number 1 so you can settle in a bit?
Oh, yeah.
Revealing our first answer of the day. Of course, it is number 3. Kind of looks like my desk with all my files in order, which I shouldn't be printing out, actually, now that I think about it. Mate, we're off to a flying start.
Cool. Thank you.
And I might quickly get John, if you can put a link into our Athena docs on the chat for everyone to have a bit of a look at. We haven't had many Athena questions, so good start. Let's move on to question number 2. Of course, security, job 0. How are you with security?
Well, this is quite security is quite a conversation that we have a lot with our customer, and especially S3 like simple storage. A lot of our customers use the S3, and the security is our job zero at Amazon. It's really important for our customers. So we have this conversation all the time.
So hopefully you're going to nail this one. And very important for the SA Associate exam as well.
Yep.
So let's do it, shall we? All right, May, your IT department wants to audit its use of Amazon S3 buckets to identify buckets that are configured for public access or are shared with other AWS accounts. How can this audit be performed?
Cool. So let's break it down into like a little... just to simplify the question. So we've got S3 buckets. We want to find out whether the S3 is configured for public access or share with other accounts. By default, S3 is private. So it's only accessible by the bucket owner.
That's right.
How can this audit be performed? It's a really, really good question. So the first answer is activate the S3 block public access on the share buckets. It is a feature, but it's not
very important
very
feature.
important feature.
We definitely need this.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's
on not for the audit purpose. So it is to lock down your S3 buckets.
Absolutely, and it's on by default. We should
it's
point that out.
It's on by default. So yeah, it's a private by default. Number two, so AWS Cloud use. Sorry,
no, all good. I do it all the time with my questions. Trust me.
So use the AWS CloudTrail to view the recent access to S3 buckets. So CloudTrail is to, it's good to look at, the audit purpose for the CloudTrail to see who is accessing the S3, what time, and what sort of resources. But it doesn't really tell you whether it has the public access or not. So we will skip on there, number two, and looking at number three, using the access analyzer for Amazon S3 to view access policy.
Access analyzer, I don't think I've heard.
Yeah, so this is the new service, a new feature, sorry, a new feature on Amazon S3.
A recent one.
A recent one. So Access Analyzer is to tell you, whether your buckets has the public access or what sort of configuration we have. And so I will stick with number three, but I'll still want to go through number four. It might be an option,
Absolutely, great tip for your exam next week.
To go through all the questions. So create an S3 configuration recorder in the AWS config. So AWS config is to, the centralized configuration, not just for S3, for all the other resources, but in this case, the solution is a S3 configuration recorder. It's not a thing. It's for the there is a configuration recorder in the config, but it's not just for S3. It's for the other service. So I will stick with three.
Actually, most people have gone with number four. So they liked the config. May is going against our audience today, locking in number three. If we can close that poll. Number three.
Make me nervous.
I was nervous there. I was rereading it, but unfortunately, viewers, incorrect answer mostly, and we did get it right. We got it there in the end, number three. Access Analyzer, new one for me, and obviously a new one for some viewers online. So we might get, actually, John's already put it in the chat.
Cool.
So that's a good one to look up. And actually, we need to work out how long that's been out, because another quick piece of information, updates are not put on the exam post 6 months after that update. So John's just shouted out to me that it was out in December, so it will be on the exam now, because we're 6 months afterwards. So perfect timing. Thank you for that one, May. Might make a quick note yourself.
That's true.
That's it. That's it. All right. Jumping ahead. Number three. Let's have a look what we're looking at. Spot instances.
Cool. Spot instances. I like that.
Happy with that one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. We got a big smile. This one should be good. Here we go. An application, is architected to use 6 Amazon EC2 instances across 2 availability zones. Interesting. How can these instances utilize spot pricing while maintaining reliability and maintainability?
Cool.
I like this one. Lots going on in there.
A lot going on in there. Spot instances, availability zone. So the EC2 instance across 2 availability zones. So in AWS, we have 24 regions and 77 availability zone available currently. Having the 6 EC2 instance across 2 availability zones, which is good because it's a high availability architecture. And the question is, how can these instances utilize sport instances while maintaining the reliability and maintainability? So that's the main point here.
Yeah,
I would
so
look at that.
You can get rid of all the little tricky little data points
Yeah.
they put in there, trying to make you concentrate
trying
on.
to trick me.
Actually, it's the two words: reliability and maintainability.
Maintainability.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's look at some answers. So first is the user separate spot block in each availability zones. The spot block is not for this purpose. Spot block is to run it for a particular amount of time, like the time frame that you want to run your EC2 instance. So it won't, it doesn't really relate with the question. So we will move
And it
on
has
to
a 6-hour limit, right?
Yeah, it has
Yeah,
a maximum
okay.
6-hour limits on the spot block. Good point, MJ. And then number 2, use a spot fleet with a mixture of instance type. So
Nice. A lot of people going for this one on the poll.
yeah, I think that it's probably the answer. The spot fleet.
What is that?
So spot fleet is as a configuration where you can configure. You have spot instances and the on-demand instances, but you still have to use. You can still maintain the reliability and maintainability of your EC2 instance. You can configure that by making a spot fleet request to AWS. So I think that's the answer. But we will keep going.
Yeah, okay.
We can go. Number 3, disable spot instant hibernation. It's the thing, when the spot instant kick in, it's gonna go. You can't really hibernate into the spot instance. So that's number 3 is out.
Getting rid of that one.
Yeah. Number 4, mark the instance as protected from termination. You can do it on the instance to mark as to protect from the termination, but it doesn't work on the spot instances. So on the main instance, you can protect from the termination, but it's not really a use case for the spot instance. So I'm gonna stick with the spot fleet.
Spot fleet when talking about reliability and maintainability.
Yep.
You have most people going for you, and no one went for 3 and 4. So we did something right there. Let's reveal the answer. It is, of course, spot
fleet.
3 for 3 so far. How are you feeling?
Good.
Are
Nervous.
you feeling a bit? No, not really. You're doing
The
so
questions
well.
are getting trickier.
Oh, okay. Oh, good. I like that. We have. I have told John to make them a bit more tricky.
Oh.
So lucky you. You got that today.
Yeah.
Relax into it. You're doing a great job. Should we jump back in? Should we jump back in?
Yeah.
To the questions.
Yeah.
Any tips that you want to give now that you've had 3 down?
I'm preparing for my Essay Associate exam as well. For me, my tip would be
right now.
Not right now, to get really hands-on, like play with the console, play with the CLI, just to get the hands-on. It makes me remember, because there are so many services. We have over 180 services available at AWS, so it's hard to remember what service is doing what. So having really hands-on helped me to
Jogs
know.
memory.
Yep, exactly.
Gives
to
you
remember.
an image to
Bring
fall
back
on.
that. Yeah, exactly. So
like
getting hands-on would be my tip for the week.
Thank you very much. I like that. Let's jump back into question number 4.
Cool.
Storage.
Cool.
Oh, should be a piece of cake for you. Nice wordy one for me. Thanks, producer John. Here we go. May, your company wishes to migrate on-prem file servers to the cloud. Perfect. Users will continue to access files via SMB, but the data should be stored on Amazon S3. A direct connect connection is already available. How can you provide this capability to your corporate users?
Cool.
Pretty
This question,
standard, right?
Yes. This question got a lot of segment too, like on-premises, user continue to access via SMB. And also a direct connect connection is also available. So a few options out there. So let's look at what the answers are.
What are we trying to get to?
So how do
Number 3, 100% so far, just so you know.
Cool. So maybe let's start with number 1, maybe. So use the AWS CLI to regularly sync the server to S3. So we can use the CLI to regularly sync the server, but it's not really, it's going to be a manual job to sync the server, and it's not for this purpose to sync the file using the CLI. So we're going to skip number 1. Number 2, ask the user to mount Amazon S3 as a local drive.
What?
Please do not do that. We don't. Yeah, it's not for this purpose. We're not gonna mount S3 Amazon S3 as a local drive. So skip number 2.
Big cross out.
Yeah.
Oh, John, let's write in how we can fully cross out an answer. I want to work on that next time on the show.
Yeah.
What about number 3?
Number 3, use AWS Storage Gateway for files.
Great point. Is
Yeah.
it AWS? Is it Amazon? Oh,
Yeah.
it really confuses me. Great point, actually.
So
AWS.
AWS Storage Gateway for this file. So it's exactly the purpose of the storage gateway. So because the questions say on premises, users still continue to access the file. So it's kind of like a hybrid architecture. You still have an on-premises file, but you still want to store some data into a cloud. So I'm going to stick with storage gateway, but let's look at number 4. Use
what
the
about faves?
AWS Snowball 8 devices. So Snowball, like the Snow family, is used for migration data into the cloud, but it's not for the hybrid architecture. So I'm going to stick with number 3.
And also not particularly real time, right? This is
oh,
for when
good
we're
point.
transferring
Yeah,
large amount
exactly.
of data, but we don't need it immediately.
Exactly. Very good point, MJ. So yeah, Snowball is to migrate, offload the data, and it's not real time. You literally ship the data to the AWS cloud.
I constantly think of Goldilocks and the 3 Bears when I think of Snowball for like the large, the medium, and the small family. So we've got Snowmobile, large, Snowball Edge, medium, and the snow
ice
cone.
cream.
Yeah, I was thinking of an ice cream.
The ice cream cone. Yeah.
The cool little robust.
Yeah,
device,
the snow
but
cone
still,
device.
How much data?
The Snowball, I think it's 8 terabyte. I might be
Something
wrong.
like that,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's a terabyte, petabyte size data to
right.
move the data into the cloud.
Maybe that's the mum in me coming out, thinking of it as a nursery rhyme. Works for me. That's my tip of the week. So we're locking in storage gateway.
Yeah.
100% online. Our first 100%.
Oh.
Of course,
Cool.
it's storage gateway, and John has put the Snow family, as we've now termed it. The link is in the chat.
Thanks, John.
For you to peruse in your own time. Feeling better?
Yep.
That one got a bit simpler. I feel that's
a
gone
bit
down
fun.
on the complexity, right?
Yeah.
Perfect timing. What have we got coming up for question number 5? Amazon RDS.
Cool.
I love that you've pointed that out. I don't think anyone
Because I
has
got
pointed that out on the
confused
show.
sometimes. Like, is it when I talk to customer, is it Amazon or is it AWS service? Okay. So,
No, I love it. It's, now I'm thinking about it. No one's pointed that out, so thank you very much. I'm going to be thinking about that myself. Question number 5. An Amazon RDS database is being used for user testing. It is only required during business hours, but is currently running continuously. What is the simplest way to reduce the cost of this Amazon RDS database instance outside of business hours?
Cool. Amazon
I think we've gone
RDS.
simple again on this one.
Yes. So I don't know. we'll find out. So RDS database is gonna use for user testing and only for a period of time.
And RDS is?
Amazon Relational Database Service. So we have a purpose-built database here at AWS. So RDS is one of the database type. And the question is, currently it's running continuously. We want to run only for a period of time. What's the simplest way to reduce the cost? A lot of cost questions.
Cost question,
yeah.
just for you.
Thanks, MJ or John. Okay, so let's start from the bottom. So just change the method a little bit. So the last one is number 4 is create a snapshot, delete the database, restore the snapshot to a new database instance the next day.
Sounds familiar.
Sounds familiar. That's how we used to do it if we want to reduce the cost. Create a snapshot, make it back up, and then restore it back. But we might have other options. So let's look at
we've made it a bit easier.
Let's look at number 3. So create a scaling schedule to reduce the size of the database. We can create a scaling schedule to reduce the size, but it's not really cost effective, or it might still involve the human to go in
manual.
and then like find out what size and things like that. So I might not go for that one. Number 2.
Great point, actually, because it is asking for the simplest way. So again,
It is.
The clue is in the question.
Yeah, so there are multiple ways, but
multiple solutions.
multiple solutions. And the simplest way, let's find out. So use a CloudWatch alarm to pause the database after a period of non-use. Not really. We can't really pause the database whether you have a database created or no such thing as pausing. So whether you stop or you start. And number one is stop the instance when not in use. That sounds like an answer to me. So you can stop the instance when we're not using. It's the simplest way and save the costs.
That's exactly what we want to do. If we're not in use, we don't want it switched on.
We don't want to switch on, so exactly. So I'll stick with number one.
Funnily enough, it was pretty much 50-50 on the polls between stopping and pausing.
Yep.
So thanks for the clarification that we can't pause within the database.
Yeah.
I like that. Assuming you've got the right answer. And the answer is number one. Good. I know, every time I'm like, oh,
yeah.
What if we got it wrong? All right. Covering a lot of ground today, but yes, a lot of cost. Let's see what the next one is going to be. Oh, cool.
Lambda.
That's been a lot of our guests' favorite product or service. Do you have one that you love to work with?
Lambda, because I used to be a software engineer before I came to Amazon. So Lambda is one of my favorite services. Oh, maybe it's one of the first services that when I started to use with AWS. So yeah, I really like Lambda.
It's been a very popular one.
Yep.
With, funnily enough, most of our SA guests.
Oh, wow. It's good to know.
There we go. All right, let's see what the question is for you. Okay, mate, an AWS Lambda function is configured to use an Amazon VPC. I was wondering when we'd have VPC. Here we go. An Amazon VPC that does not have an internet gateway. The Lambda function must connect with an Amazon RDS database in the same VPC and Amazon SQS. So, how should the network be configured to enable this?
Cool. So a few services here, right? Amazon VPC, AWS Lambda, and RDS. So
and SQS.
And SQS, and that was the main point, to connect to SQS. So the virtual private cloud, it's within the VPC, we want to run a Lambda. And the question here is how the network should be configured. So you have the Lambda, and then the VPC run on top of it, trying to connect to the RDS and also the Amazon SQS. So first, let's look at the answer. So the first one is add a NAT gateway to a public subnet in the VPC. So public subnet is basically the internet accessible subnet, but in the question says the VPC doesn't have an internet gateway. So having a NAT gateway to a public subnet doesn't really solve, or it's not really a case because there is no internet available. Number two is add a VPC endpoint for Amazon SQS. So the VPC endpoint is basically to access the services like SQS without going through the internet.
Yep.
So that sounds like an answer.
100% so far.
But let's look at all the possibilities. So number three is attach a public IP address to the Lambda function ENI, which is the Elastic Network Interface, I think. I might be wrong. It's a Elastic Network Interface, I think. But attaching public IP address, it won't do the job because we do not have an internet gateway, and having public IP address, if you don't have an internet gateway, it's no use of having public IP address.
Absolutely.
And number four is configure the RDS as a publicly available record. Yes, we don't want our relational database to be publicly available because it's not good from the security point of view. We want to lock down as much as possible. So please do not do that again.
So a big complete no for number four.
No.
And it won't solve
the problem. Exactly. So I will stick with number two with the
endpoint. All right. Another 100% with our viewers. I think we're going well. And yes. Of course. It's number two. I think we might have time to jump to another question.
Yeah.
If that's all right.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, my fault. Didn't change the slide. All right, S3, here we go. Your company has a repository of documents stored in Amazon S3, including text files, PDFs, Word, and PowerPoint files. I think we see where we're going with this
Yeah.
one. Which AWS service can be used to create a search service across those documents using natural language?
Awesome.
Question.
Yep.
Extra question to the question. Have you seen ML Power Hour on Twitch?
Well, I have seen a couple of them. They're really
It's
cool.
so good.
Yeah, like it's really interesting. Like the use case and like my favorite thing, hands-on, like showing the ML power. So which is
That's why
pretty
I thought you
cool.
might have had a
Yep.
bit of a quiz. So actually that is on Fridays our time from 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. PDT. So check out the episode 8, I think we're on to,
Yep.
of ML Power Hour this week.
Awesome.
And if you go back, there's a one perfect for this
Yeah,
question actually that made
exactly.
me think of it. So apologies, mate. Over to you. Documents
Cool.
using natural language.
So the S3 natural language, that's kind of popped out. And also a search service. So first is launch the Amazon Lexbot. Lexbot is kind of like a chatbot service, not for the natural language kind of sense.
Yep.
Not number one. Number two, load the file into Aurora database. Aurora is our another type of database at AWS. So we won't use the database for the natural language. So skip the number two. Number three, activate Amazon Comprehend on the S3 buckets. It sounds about right, but it doesn't sound so right because Comprehend is using the natural language. But it's more for the analyzing the
text
text.
itself.
Yeah, so
Nouns, verbs,
exactly
sentiment.
the relationship between the text or a sentence. So
I can see
not
why
for
they
the
put that in there
search.
though.
Yeah, because it's using the natural language. It sounds
Absolutely.
like a bit tricky. But number four is the Amazon Candor search engines on the S3 bucket. So that sounds
Awesome
more
product.
right to me. So the Candor is help you to do the like a search service on the S3 bucket. So I'll stick with number four.
Number
Please.
4, almost got there on the line. Most people agreeing with Kendra. If you haven't checked it out, please do. Go and have a play. Our answer is number 4.
Oof.
Should we quickly try and fit in a last question?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Let's try and,
Cool.
we've got 2 minutes. I think we've got it.
Is that the last?
I think we got it. Cloudfront. Okay, I reckon we could do this in 2 minutes. Let's
Oof.
do it. You are hosting a static website on Amazon S3 served through Amazon Cloudfront to users around the world. How can you reduce the cost the cost of data transfer?
I think we've got like 3 cost
Started
questions.
with it, we'll end with it. Let's do it.
Cool. So Amazon S3, Cloudfront here, reduce the cost. So that's the main point. Reduce the cost of a data transfer. Let's look at the answer. So first is choose the lower price class in the Cloudfront. That sounds about right because we do have a different types of price class in the Cloudfront.
Yeah.
But let's keep going. So number 2, configure the Cloudfront to cache the data from the S3. You can cache the data, and that's the point of Cloudfront to cache the data.
Yep.
But it doesn't reduce the cost for data transfer,
Yes.
which is the question. So it doesn't serve the purpose in this case. So we skip number 2.
Mm-hmm.
Number 3, replicate the S3 buckets into several different regions. So replicating S3 bucket doesn't really save the cost for the data transfer. So we will skip that. Number 4, so Cloudfront distribution in several different regions. Cloudfront is the global service, so it's just run all across the world.
Yep.
So we do not have to configure it to be a different region. So number 4 is not the answer. So I will stick with number 1.
Very cost related.
Yeah.
Nice, easy one to end with. We choose a lower price class. Oh, hardly anyone has actually gone for this one, is what I just was wondering about. But of course, it is cost question and the only answer that related to cost reduction.
Thank you.
May, thank you so much for being with us today. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Please come back and let us know how you go with your certification next
I will
week.
let you know. Thank you so much for having me.
Very,
you.
very welcome. Anytime. We will be back next week for another episode of CQ. And like I said, please also check out the ML Power Hour if you want to dive deep on some of those ML products and services. Thank you so much for being with us. Bye.